The laughter erupted even before the cameras stopped rolling. It wasn't the nervous kind that eases tension. It was a deep, mocking roar that filled the entire room with raw arrogance. It came from a woman who had lived her whole life convinced that no one could ever hold her accountable. The viewers at home didn't know it yet, but that single sound would become one of the most replayed clips in courtroom television history. Karen Mitchell, now infamous as Fat Karen, leaned back in her chair and smirked as if she were the host of the show instead of the one on trial. The way she looked at Judge Judy, like a parent humoring a confused child, made it clear to everyone present that this woman had no idea whose courtroom she had entered. For nearly a decade, Karen had crowned herself the undisputed queen of Willow Creek Estates. As president of the Homeowners Association, she ran the neighborhood like a petty tyrant, driven by a hunger for control that outweighed any need for friendship. Behind closed doors, residents compared her to a school principal who never outgrew handing out detentions, and she thrived on those whispers. Every violation notice she mailed, every fine she imposed, every late-night call to code enforcement fed her sense of importance. She wasn't the neighbor who baked cookies for block parties. She was the one who shut them down if the decorations didn't match strict HOA color rules. This court date was supposed to be her victory lap. She had dragged a quiet neighbor, Lillian Cortez, into court over what she called deliberate property damage. The offense? Planting sunflowers in her own yard. Those flowers grew a little too tall, cast too much shade on the corner, and broke the perfect uniformity Karen guarded like a sacred duty. It was ridiculous by any standard, which was exactly why producers chose it for national television. An entitled suburban ruler facing Judge Judy promised explosive ratings. The moment Judge Judy entered, the atmosphere transformed, murmurs faded, even the cameras seemed to steady. Judy commanded respect without saying a word. Her presence carried decades of authority. Karen, however, adjusted her cardigan and offered a sugary smile that was pure condescension disguised as politeness. She greeted the judge as if welcoming a new neighbor rather than standing before one of America's most formidable judges. "Good morning, Your Honor," Karen said, her voice dripping with false sweetness and a smirk. "I hope we can wrap this up fast. I have an HOA meeting to attend later." Judy's face remained unchanged. Her reply was calm yet carried an unmistakable edge. "We'll take whatever time is needed. Tell me, Mrs. Mitchell, why we're all here today." Karen straightened her papers like a corporate executive. "This is simply about respecting community rules, Judge. The defendant knowingly broke our landscaping guidelines after repeated warnings and refuses to pay the fines. It's about holding people accountable." The words flowed easily. She had delivered similar speeches countless times at association meetings where her word was final. She expected this to be no different, another stage to display her leadership. Judy listened without blinking, nodding slightly, which only fed Karen's false confidence. She mistook patience for agreement. Lillian Cortez sat quietly across from her, hands folded, face etched with exhaustion from years of targeted harassment. When Judy gently asked how long the conflict had lasted, Lillian's voice shook. "Almost 3 years, Your Honor. I've paid over $8,000 in fines." I tried to fix everything she demanded, but she always found something new. The room shifted uncomfortably. Karen's eyes flicked toward the camera, a brief flash of awareness that public sympathy was slipping away, quickly masked by another smirk. "Some people simply hate rules," she muttered. Judy heard it. Everyone did. What followed was a textbook display of unchecked arrogance. Karen interrupted repeatedly, argued points, and even corrected the judge's reading of the regulations. That mocking laugh returned, ugly and dismissive, making the audience recoil. When Judge Judy issued her first quiet warning, "Mrs. Mitchell, choose your words carefully," Karen chuckled out loud. That sound sealed her fate. Unbeknownst to Karen, Judy had already reviewed every piece of evidence, documents, financial records, even irregularities in the HOA accounts. This was no longer a trivial dispute. It had become a loaded weapon, and Karen had just pulled the trigger herself. Arrogance, Judy knew from thousands of cases, always overreaches. Karen Mitchell was living proof. The instant that warning left Judy's lips, the courtroom felt the shift. Everyone except Karen. Most defendants would have straightened up and softened their tone. Karen did the opposite. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and laughed again, the sound slicing through the silence like cracking glass. "Relax, Your Honor," she said, waving her hand as if swatting away an annoyance. "You don't need to threaten me. I know how the law works." The bailiff tensed. The audience held its breath. Judy watched her like a gathering storm assessing a fragile ship. When she spoke again, her voice was low, precise, and final. Mrs. Mitchell, I do not issue threats. I issue rulings. Karen refused to back down. The retreat on camera would shatter the image she had built over years. So she doubled down. I'm sure you do, she replied, sarcasm thick, but you can't rule on what you don't understand. HOA law is more complex than small claims court, Judge. A collective gasp swept the room. Karen had just suggested on national television that Judge Judy lacked the knowledge to interpret the law. Judy's eyes darkened, but her expression stayed controlled, the calm before the storm. Are you questioning my qualifications, Mrs. Mitchell? Karen's smirk grew. I'm saying HOA issues are specialized. I've been president for 8 years. Most judges don't grasp how these communities function. No offense, but I've studied the full state property code cover to cover twice. Judy let the silence stretch, surgical and heavy. Karen mistook it for uncertainty and pressed forward. This case isn't about feelings, it's about standards. If people like Mrs. Cortez can ignore rules, property values drop. I protect the community, even when it requires hard decisions. Pride laced her words, the same misplaced pride that had ruined others before her. She scanned the room expecting support and found only stony silence and disgust. Lillian sat motionless, watching her oppressor unravel. Judy exhaled softly. You truly believe your actions are justified? Absolutely, Karen answered. The law supports me. Does it? Judy whispered. Before Karen could continue, Judy raised a hand. Remember this is not your neighborhood meeting. It is my courtroom. When I allow you to speak, consider it a privilege, not a right. Quiet applause rippled through the gallery. Karen flushed red, but forced another brittle laugh. Whatever you say, Your Honor. I've faced worse from my own board. Judy leaned in, her voice chilling. This is not a threat, Mrs. Mitchell. It is a guarantee. Keep laughing, and you may discover what happens when the law turns its full attention to your own records. Color drained from Karen's face. Doubt finally flickered in her eyes, but the damage was done. The cameras rolled, and her arrogance had scripted her own collapse. Long before this trial, Karen had been authoring her downfall. Power was her addiction, and the Willow Creek HOA was her endless source. What started as volunteer work to improve the community had become a personal empire built on insecurity masked as order. She didn't manage the neighborhood. She owned it in her mind. Resistance was met with punishment. Residents learned quickly that Karen's smile signaled danger. A retired teacher was fined and lectured for an unapproved bird feeder. Families faced hundreds in penalties for holiday decorations left up too long or a towel drying on a fence. Karen posted violation notices publicly in red ink, humiliating neighbors while claiming it upheld standards. The Cortez family became her primary target after moving in 3 years earlier. Their innocent chalk drawings, Christmas lights, and even mailbox paint drew repeated citations totaling nearly $9,000. Lillian's children stopped playing outside. The family withdrew from community life. Karen saw their silence as triumph, unaware that every action was building a damning record. Judy's team had uncovered suspicious financial patterns overnight, overlapping accounts, questionable spending from HOA funds. As Karen defended her leadership in court, Judy connected every dot. The arrogance wasn't new. It was the symptom of years without oversight. When Judy shifted the questioning to financial transparency, Karen faltered. Documents revealed payments routed to accounts linked to her family and personal finances. Over $50,000 mislabeled as community improvements. Confronted with the evidence, Karen stammered excuses, but Judy dismantled each one with calm precision. You used your authority as a shield for greed, Judy stated. You fined residents for minor infractions while diverting their money for personal gain. Today that shield collapses. The courtroom fell silent as Judy revealed a direct transfer matching the exact amount Lillian had paid in fines. Karen's empire of control crumbled in real time. Tears replaced defiance. Her sobs echoed as the judge announced forfeiture proceedings, asset seizures, and the loss of her home to repay victims. Karen walked out broken, the once powerful queen reduced to silence. The neighborhood breathed freely again. Sunflowers bloomed without fear. A new bench in the park carried a plaque. Power means nothing if it costs your humanity. Karen's laughter, once a weapon, now haunted her in a quiet apartment far from the estate she once ruled. The viral clip served as a reminder. Entitlement collapses under truth. Justice doesn't always roar, it whispers, and when it does, the arrogant finally hear it.